I think we can say that the Constitution reflected the enormous blind spot in this culture that carries on until this day, and that the framers had that same blind spot.
Most of the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.
There's an attack on conservatives from the liberal left and an even closer enemy. Karl Rove is on a mission to clean up the Republican Party. Too many conservatives messing up elections. Sure, of course. Who can forget that tricorn hat-wearing Mitt Romney? What a Tea Party activist he was, huh? The truth is, Mitt Romney was an old-school, moderate GOP status quo that conservatives thought waffled more than an Eggo factory. The grand old party is not in dire straits because of God-loving, gun-toting conservatives. It is faltering because of out-of-date, same old policies. With celebrities like Chris Rock and Ellen Barkin calling President Obama daddy and we're his people, I don't think we need to tone it down. Obama sure ain't my daddy, and we are no one's people. We are the people. And Karl Rove with his conservative victory project that, much like the Patriot Act, has such an alluring title. This is that yummy-looking gingerbread house that has an evil witch inside. Karl Rove is not the problem solver. Karl Rove is the problem. Tom Del Becarro, the Republican Party chairman of California, joins me today to talk about these issues. Karl Rove's conservative victory project is outraging a lot of conservatives, myself included. Isn't it just a cleansing of the GOP of conservatives? Isn't it something like George Bush's Patriot Act? It has a lovely name, but fundamentally it's meant to purge the GOP of conservatives. What's your opinion?
Well, a minority party goes through these cycles of where a lot of people think they have the answer on how to go forward. And you have much more disagreement when you're not in the White House than when you are in the White House. And so Karl Rove thinks he has his answers, and of course others think they have their answers, Tea Party included. I tend to think it's giving too much weight to what he's doing. I don't think Karl Rove's the issue. I don't think the Tea Party in particular is the issue. I think what's missing and why Republicans are fighting is they don't have leadership that has an action plan to go forward. If we had leadership with a strong action plan that people could get behind, then we would be fighting each other less and moving forward. So, is Karl Rove's group the answer to everything? Certainly not. Is the Tea Party candidate always the right candidate in every race? No. But what's missing is a strong brand and an action plan, and that's what we need to focus on.
What do you think about this 11th commandment that Reagan was supposed to have said, that thou shalt not attack another Republican? As Rick Perry said, Governor Rick Perry of Texas, he said he didn't think that was necessarily Ronald Reagan, but a Republican chairman. As a Republican chairman, do you agree with that assessment?
Well, actually, it was during the era of when Reagan was governor, it was the California Republican Party chairman, whose name's going to escape me, who initially said it, and Reagan adopted it. And I think, again, this sort of highlights the issue of that when you're not the party in power, you tend to have more disagreements. And so the question is how to go forward. The problem today is that government is so big and it's doing so many things, and there are so many candidates everywhere. It's going to be very hard in the future, and it's unrealistic to assume that people are going to abide by it. But we should do a better job of helping our candidates as opposed to shooting at them from the moment they even think about being a candidate. That's our problem, one of our problems. The moment someone says they want to run for something, instead of helping them, we start shooting at them from all sides, and that's hurting us because we're not getting enough good candidates because they don't want to enter that process. And it's not the Democrats that are doing it, it's the Republicans.
What about candidates like Todd Akin and Richard Murdoch? Now, they were clearly going to win the race until they made what is obviously an ignorant statement. Now, shouldn't they just be the ones to be punished, not all conservatives?
Well, what happened in those particular circumstances is a problem that Republicans are facing. And it's actually something I'm putting together a new organization to work on that, which will, when I come back down, we can talk about that at length. But look, in the modern world, anything you say when you're running for a significant office can be blown out of proportion or magnified, because the first time you say it, it's on TV. Now that doesn't apply to them, that applies to everyone. They clearly said things that were off the charts, and then it gets blown out of proportion and defines them for the rest of their lives. Again, what they said was wrong and it hurt their candidacy. But we should be helping candidates early on so that they know the issues, so that they know how to communicate with people. Because if we're not helping them, we're going to have more instances of these very bad statements that will define the whole party as opposed to particular candidates. Well, there's a number of things the Republican Party needs to do. Most of all, it has to give people a reason and an agenda as to why they should think Republicans are going to help them in their daily lives. That's what's missing in large part for the Republican Party. Why should you vote Republican? Because if we vote for you, what are you going to do? And without that overriding, overarching theme and understanding with voters, you can't expect to go from the minority party or the party not in the White House to the White House. That's number one. Number two, Republicans need to realize that you can't win the White House and you can't win the rest of the state from Washington or Sacramento. You have to go out there to where voters are. They don't come to you. They're busy with their lives. They're looking for jobs. So you've got to communicate with them where they are. Now, beyond that, you also have to communicate with them in a way that they understand and makes sense to them. You can't give a one-size-fits-all communication strategy because Nebraska is different than California and a 20-year-old gets his news different than a 65-year-old. So not only do Republicans need a theme and an overarching program that people can buy into, but they need to start talking to people where they live and in terms they understand. And a lot of that has to do with increasing the number of Republicans delivering the message. We can't have just a small set of people doing this. We need to learn from the Democrats and realize that through their unions and otherwise, they evangelize 365 days a year, and they do it with an extraordinary number of people. It's not so much, again, that we need to, quote, outreach. I personally don't like the word outreach because it implies that they're beyond your reach. They're voters. This is about getting people to vote. So you need to talk to them. I would, as a trial attorney, I would no sooner talk to 7 out of 12 jurors and expect to win, but somehow Republicans think that's okay when it comes to politics, that you can't go talk to people. So they need an action plan, they need a reason, they need to give people a reason to vote for them. They need to start talking to people where they are instead of from Washington or Sacramento. And they should increase the number of people they speak to. We probably speak to 20-30% of the electorate at most. That number has to increase dramatically, and you can do it by involving more people in the process.
There have been a lot of attacks by President Obama's administration on our Constitution, from the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of religion, to the Second Amendment, which we're seeing now, this ban on assault rifles. And we just watched here in California Dorner, who had assault rifles, and I even read rockets. Now he was a police officer and had access to this. So that banning assault rifles would not solve the problems. Isn't this an issue of mental illness? And isn't this also an issue of President Obama promoting his agenda?
Well, certainly Obama is good at framing the issue and driving the debate. And Republicans need to do a far, far better job at doing that. All of these school shootings, I think 100% of the shooters involved had mental illness and they were on some serious medication. You know, the kind where you hear it on TV and it says if you have feelings of wanting to commit suicide, please stop taking these. And so unquestionably, that is as big as, or a far bigger issue than the issue of the gun. It's also an issue of parenting. Let's face it, this woman, the parent in Newtown, never should have allowed her son around those weapons. But the problem is Obama is the one framing the debate, not the Republicans. And this is over any number of issues. Obama frames the debate that, look, I want government to do all these things. Republicans should be doing a far better job framing the debate about the shortcomings of government, how they're going to clean it up, and how people are better off. But you don't hear that anymore from national Republicans, quote unquote, how they're better off. They don't know how to make the prosperity argument. And if you lose the prosperity argument as Republicans, you're going to stay the minority party.
What do you think the future of America is?
Look, I think the Republican Party needs to have a come-to-Jesus moment pretty quickly here. They need to realize that government naturally grows. Thomas Jefferson told us that initially, and all of history is about government centralizing more and more power over time. So if Republicans think that voters are just going to naturally turn away government benefits, that's just not the story of history. They have to work harder to get people to realize the benefits of freedom. And if the Republicans don't quickly develop that agenda, an agenda based on freedom and prosperity and how Americans can do better, they're going to stay the minority party, and government's going to continue to grow. And quite frankly, our standard of living is going to continue to decline.
Grow? Will we have that opportunity, or will this what I think is a socialist movement grow even bigger? Will we all have Obama phones in 5 years?
The story of Western civilization and Eastern, to a great degree, is that governments that starts out small, relatively efficient, and winds up large and inefficient. It's not a story of government starting out large and inefficient and winding up small and efficient. If you know that historical background, then it's not easy or difficult to surmise that our own government will do the same thing. And sure enough, our government is 3.5 times bigger than it was just 30 years ago, and the pace is accelerating. So, will government be bigger tomorrow than today? Yes, unless we do things. Will the tax problem be even bigger in 10 years than it is today? Absolutely, because as we age as a population, then you're going to have to find new ways to tax if we're going to continue to make these promises to people on how much they can get out of government. So, unless you have strong leadership, you can expect government to continue to grow in this fashion.
Was John Boehner correct in what he did? I know he's getting a lot of flack, and I felt a bit betrayed by him as well. I know we need to work with the other side, but we don't need to compromise everything we believe in. How do you look at that?
Well, I think Republicans aren't controlling the debate. When the debate is about how much to tax, Republicans will lose. When the debate is how to clean up government, Republicans win. But you can't start that debate right at the end when the tax bill's due. You have to make a commitment to controlling that debate from the beginning. Republicans aren't doing that. Every month, the Republicans should put forth a new bill in Congress to clean up a government program and tell people how it will save them money, so that they understand that there's enough money there. It's just that we have wasteful governments. The average person doesn't know we have over 80 welfare programs. The problem is far greater than just what should we do at the last minute. Republicans need to control the debate early on by making the debate about cleaning up government, not how to tax people even more.
Do you think that the conservatives and the Republicans will unite along with the libertarians, or do you think this is going to fracture into multiple parties, and won't that be even more detrimental?
That kind of fracturing would be far more detrimental. The question is, how do we unite? And the answer is you unite around a government reform agenda, which means that you have to go out there and have that action plan. So what I think they should do, and I wrote about this in Forbes, is pretty simple. Every month, you put forth a major reform of a government program. You tell people why the program was created, why it's not currently working, how much money you're going to save them. You pass the bill, and then you send it to Harry Reid, and then the Republicans should go around the country like Obama does and tell everybody what they did, why they did, and how much it saves, and demand that Harry Reid and Obama pass the savings that the Republicans just did. If they did the high-profile stuff like that, they could control the debate far greater.
All right, you are not running again. What are Tom Del Becarro's plans?
Well, for one, I'm writing a new book called The Divided Era, which talks about the monolithic size of government and how that increases the division in society. I should have that finished in the next couple of 3 or 4 months. And I'm starting a new project, which we're going to roll out in about a month, that is designed to help candidates understand tax and regulatory policy so that they can communicate it to Americans.
Okay, if you could say one thing to President Obama, one thing you'd like to say to him right now, what would you say?
That history doesn't remember people well who divide people to get to where they're going.
Social media rules, constitutions, or documents in good governance tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.